Hello everybody, pleased to meet you. I'm here to present a little bit of a discussion on some healing topics and to share with you a short reading or a prayer. And my name is Dr. Bruce Thompson. I'm a registered homeopath and acupuncturist, also a member of the Baha'i community. And I've been asked to come along and share a few things with you today. And I thought the best thing I could do for you to share from my experience is to give you a little bit of free medicine. And the free medicine is something that might surprise some of you, and maybe for some of you it won't come as much of a surprise. But what I want to talk to you about today is the gift that you have, that all of us have, and that is the gift of our breath. Now, one of the things that I find most interesting in practice with my patients is how little we think about our breath, how little we think about this momentary act that we engage in every moment of our lives, from the first moment of our existence to the last. And we just take it for granted. We think that, we breathe. Why do we have to think about breathing? But our breath is critical to how we feel. It's critical to our well-being. And I want to explain to you a few reasons why, and then give you a few exercises that you can do, and I'll show you an example of one of the things that we can do, and this will be something that I'm sure will be familiar to a lot of you. One of the things that we can do to experience the beauty of the correct breath. So, one of the things that makes us unique as human beings is our ability to decide where and how and at what pace we breathe. And not many of us realize, if you think about it, it's obvious, but most animals have no choice as to how they breathe. They breathe fast when they're running, and they breathe slow when they're resting, and they, like a dog, will pant faster when it's hot to lose heat. But all of those processes, all of those breathing processes are just instinctive, and they're determined by the body. What makes humans unique? Almost unique, because there are other animals that can do this as well, and they're very special animals, and those are the cetaceans. So dolphins and whales also have the ability to choose when they breathe. They can choose to hold their breath, and they dive deep into the ocean, and they can go on for hours and hours and hours down there, some of them, and then they come up and then they choose to breathe while they've held their breath for that entire time. We spent a lot of our evolutionary history as human beings, we spent in the water, and that's what gave us this gift, this ability to decide voluntarily whether we stop breathing and how long we stop breathing for. We can practice to hold our breath for longer periods of time. Or we can choose to breathe very rapidly. And some of you may have done yoga practices, yoga exercises, yoga classes, where you've done rapid breathing, breath of fire, for example. And many of you who've done those sorts of practice will also have spent a lot of time concentrating on where you breathe. Now, your breath is critical because it is the link between our voluntary nervous system and our involuntary nervous system, and that's why it's such a key and special element of our physiology. So most animals, as I've been explaining, can't do that. They just are. They behave in the way that their biology determines their behavior. But we can change that. We can choose how we breathe, and by doing so, we can have an influence on our physiology. So all of you will be aware of the idea of fight-flight. Less of you, but I'm sure a lot of you as well, will be also aware of the concept of rest, heal, and digest. And those two ideas are aspects of something called the autonomic nervous system. technically called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branches of the autonomic nervous system. That autonomic nervous system is that part of our nervous system that deals with all sorts of things that we don't think about, what our pulse rate is, what's happening in our brain, what's happening with our digestion, how warm or cold our hands and feet are, and so on. So our breath gives us the ability to have an influence on that part of our nervous system. And just going back to that idea of fight, flight, and rest, and digest, and heal, there are two aspects of breathing which determine whether we are in fight, flight, or in rest, digest, and heal. And that is as simple as, I want you to think about it in these simple terms, because really it is this simple. Is your breath here in the chest, where your life support organs are, your heart and your lungs, or is your breath here in your abdomen, which is where your digestive and reproductive and healing systems are, okay? So your large organs like your spleen, which is your big lymphatic organ, your liver, which cleans your blood and sets so many different things, your intestines, your kidneys, your stomach, etc., and your reproductive organs. So with the breath and with our ability to choose where we breathe, we can decide, are we going to breathe here, which, as I said to you already, is your sympathetic breath, which is your fight, flight type of breath, or is your breath here in your belly, which is your rest, heal, and digest. And the practice that I want you to engage in is to think about where your breath is sitting. And if your breath tends to sit here, and that goes for about 80 to 90% of people that I see as patients on a daily basis, their breath tends to sit here, which means that they're in fight-flight. They're in an anxiety state. If your breath is here, it tends to be shallow and it tends to be rapid, or relatively rapid. If your breath is here in your abdomen, it tends to be deeper because you're using your diaphragm, and it tends to be slower. And that is fundamentally the key to what I'm trying to teach you and what I'm trying to explain to you, is that if you can move your breath into your belly, into your abdomen, and use your diaphragm, your breath will be slower and your nervous system will be more relaxed. And if your nervous system is more relaxed, your body is going to digest its food better, it's going to spread its resources around more efficiently and more generally, your immune system is going to function better, and your brain is going to be more relaxed. Your whole nervous system will be more relaxed. So you can think about breathing. If some of you know music, understand the concept of a metronome, or we all understand the concept of pace. So that the more your breath sits up here, the higher the pace of your breath. And just like music, which runs at a higher speed and is more rapid and is more energetic, it makes you feel more tense, or it makes you feel more energetic, or it raises your blood pressure, it raises your pulse rate. And when things slow down, music that is regular and harmonious, and the pace of it is slower, it helps us to relax. So if you understand that and you can get that picture in your head, that's exactly what we're trying to do with the breath. By deepening the breath and pushing the breath into the abdomen, we're slowing the breath down and we're helping the whole nervous system to relax. And when the nervous system relaxes, your immune system wakes up and your digestive system wakes up. And that's where we get the whole idea of rest, digest, and heal. So I don't want to go on too much longer. That's a kind of a broad strokes picture of what I'm trying to explain to you. So what I'll do is I'll now just engage in a bit of recitation. So a practice that tends to make us take a deep breath and express a long out breath. So the whole key to this idea of improving sympathetic or parasympathetic tone is to extend our out breath. So in so doing, we're slowing our breath down. So I'm going to start reciting what in the Baha'i faith is we call the long healing prayer. I'm not going to do the whole thing because that goes on for about 5 or 6 minutes, and I don't think you've got time for that. But if you want to find this prayer, you can go to www.bahai.org, bahai.org, and you'll be able to find all the Baha'i prayers there. But just put in the search bar, put in long healing prayer, and it'll bring this prayer up for you. So I'm just going to recite the first few verses of it, and you'll get a sense of the kind of pace that I'm talking about, you reading at, and you'll get a sense, you'll see my tummy rising and falling, and this is what I'm trying to teach you, trying to express to you. If you can engage in this practice, it's going to help you to heal. For those of you who are in quarantine or in isolation because of COVID, you're all going to be struggling with your breath, and breath is going to be difficult for you. And if you can practice this diaphragmatic breathing, it's going to help you immensely, because it's going to help raise your blood oxygen levels. And in addition to that, you're going to be assisted with your immune response. And your immune response, your immune system, your own immune system, is your best protection in this whole process. So, without further ado, I'll start reading the long healing prayer, and I'll go for a minute or so, and you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about. He is the healer, the sufficer, the helper, the all-forgiving, the all-merciful. I call on thee, O exalted one, O faithful one, O glorious one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O sovereign, O upraiser, O judge, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O peerless one, O eternal one, O single one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O most praised one, O holy one, O helping one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Omniscient, O most wise, O most great one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Clement one, O Majestic one, O Ordaining one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. And it goes on. So I invite you to find that prayer and read it for yourselves and get a sense of how that makes you feel. And I look forward to hearing from you, what your experiences have been, and I do hope that this has helped you. So thank you very much.